My name is Vanessa Joseph, and I humbly serve as the chairwoman of the Haitian-American Voter Empowerment Coalition, or HAV. As the daughter of Haitian immigrants, my love for Haitian culture goes well beyond the food, the music, and the language. Just like many of you, I am proud of Haiti's history. I am proud that we were the first independent Black nation, and I am proud that we were the first nation to abolish slavery. Certainly, this was not an easy feat given that our ancestors came from different African tribes, but they genuinely believed that l'union fait la force, and they put aside their differences and focused on a singular essential right, freedom and liberty for all. Today, as a community, we must return to this mindset. We need l'union. Nous besoin l'union plus passer tout l'autre bagay jodi. Our shared interests must come before our differences. It is said that in politics, there can be no permanent enemies, no permanent friends, but only permanent interests. No matter what your party affiliation, your religious beliefs, where you come from, and where you live, we are calling upon you to join in this movement. For far too long, our votes have been fragmented and therefore diluted. Yes, our votes have mattered, but they have not leveraged tangible results for the Haitian community. That is why I am proud to invite you to join the Haitian-American Voter Empowerment Coalition as we work together to carry this movement forward. HAV is the result of a consensus building amongst a myriad of local and national organizations and individuals determined to ensure that the Haitian electorate is informed, empowered, and engaged, and that the votes of the Haitian electorate are valued. There are many ways in which you can work with HAV, and we need community champions across the United States and abroad who can help to motivate Haitian American voters within your locality. But if you don't have much time to volunteer, then we urge you to consider making a contribution to HAV. Of course, politics are expensive, but if each of us makes a small sacrifice and financially contributes to the cause, we can make a significant impact on the upcoming elections and future elections. While we are living in very challenging times as a result of the pandemic, we cannot allow it to distract us from continuing to fight for the causes that matter to us most. After all, bay piti pa chiche, et me en pile chay balou. Change is always possible, but it is up to each generation, each and every single one of us to make it happen. I hope our generation does not only wish to change the status quo, but that we really work to make it happen. Our generational task now is to repeat our ancestors' footprints and their models. L'union fait la force. That being said, I invite you to visit our website at www.havcoalition.org to make your contribution or sign up to join this coalition, our coalition. I thank you so much for your consideration and your commitment to moving our community forward. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of the National Alliance for the Advancement of Haitian Professionals, or NAAHP, Candidate Symposium. My name is Vanessa, and I'm your chairwoman for the HAV Coalition, and I am also your moderator for this evening. We know that we're in the thick of election season, and 2020 has not been easy on us. Nevertheless, we cannot neglect our civic duty or be complacent because our brothers and sisters are on the ballot. And with the challenges presented by COVID-19, we must seize the moment and ensure that we take advantage of every opportunity to make our voices heard and exercise our right to vote. I want to applaud our guests today who are elected officials, but who are also running for re-election in these unique and very much challenging times. But I also want to thank you for your service to the communities that you represent, as you make it possible for Haitian Americans throughout the United States to see themselves in public office. So, chapeau bas. I'm grateful that you took the time to be here with us, and I want to remind everyone that is watching that neither NAAHP nor Have Coalition endorses any candidates. We seek only to provide a platform for the individuals that you may see on your ballots. This panel is for you, so please be sure to ask any questions that you may have as we go along. So before we jump into the conversation, I would love for each one of you to please introduce yourselves to our viewers, and we'll go ahead and start with Assemblywoman Mathylde Frontus.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde kap gade programme sa. My name is Mathylde Frontus. Thank you for your very lovely introduction. I enjoyed watching the video, which played before we're speaking now. Like you, I am a daughter of Haitian immigrants, proud to be a first-generation American in my family. Moved to Coney Island when I was about 7 years old. Everyone in my neighborhood has heard me tell my story. I've been living out here now for about 35 years and grew up being really active in the community and decided to run for office for the first time 2 years ago. And it's been really the honor of my life to be serving in this seat. I never planned to do this. This was never something that I envisioned doing, but now that I'm here, it's been an honor and a privilege. And I'm proud to have also been the fifth Haitian American to join the New York State Assembly. I was able to join an existing Haitian caucus, which includes my other two colleagues who are here tonight. I understand we have a sixth person of Haitian descent joining us next year, so the caucus is growing. And it's just a pleasure for me to be here tonight, and I look forward to hearing from everyone.
Awesome. Assemblymember Clyde Vanel.
Well, Vanessa, thank you for hosting this. Really excited to be here with NAAHP and excited to be here with HAVE. Very important for us as a community to be organized. So when we heard about you guys hosting this, we ran at the opportunity. And we understand that it's not easy to be able to organize the community and to do this, but this work is very much well needed. And it shows, and I say this before, it shows the maturity of us as Haitian Americans of not only voting, but also doing voter engagement and community engagement and organizing around that. And thank you for doing that. I'm Clyde Vanel. I was born and raised in Queens, but I am of Haitian descent. My mom said Mun my mom said Mun Kafu. All right, I'm like, hey, stop laughing, Kim. They was different about how messed up my Creole is. But I'll tell you guys that, I had a cold last week, and my mom brought me some tea with so much ginger that we all could recognize that, that Tejewan. And I had to, it was so much ginger that it burned my insides. And that's part of being Haitian. So, but it's a blessing to be able for us to be able to serve in this position, being just one generation from the motherland. It's important for us to be able to be tasked with the responsibility of coming out with in such a very difficult and tumultuous time in the world to be have the responsibility to not only take care of major decisions for the IECNs, but for everyone in New York State. And I'm happy to serve with my other colleagues that are here, and we're happy to get into issues as we go on further in this discussion.
Awesome. Assemblywoman Kimberly Jean-Pierre.
Did I lose you? Okay. Hi. Well, thank you. I want to thank NAAHP and HAVE for hosting us tonight, and to everyone that's watching. This is definitely a new norm. And I always say that I hope it is something that we're just coping with and something that we don't have to get used to, because I do miss the physical, the interaction with people in person. Vanessa, thank you. I represent Suffolk County, the 11th Assembly District out on Long Island. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I've been here for about almost 17 years. I have a 4-year-old daughter, one on the way, any few days now, any few weeks now. And I'm excited. I've been in office for 3 terms. I'm looking forward to continue serving in the next term. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve with my colleagues. In my second term, Clyde was one of the ones who, I laugh at his Creole because he was one of the ones that came to Haiti with me when I did the first ever Haiti, the first ever Haiti trip delegation with state assembly members and senators to Haiti, which was incredible. Our country has so much beauty inside, and I value our culture and tradition. And I always say that we should make sure that we continue that legacy with our children.
Awesome. That's beautiful. And I just want to, put that disclaimer out there. We will not Creole shame on this platform.
Definitely.
Creole parle, Creole comprendre, qui veut dire that, whatever you got, we're going to accept. So give us your best Kringlish if you want to, but it's okay. All right. So I think it's really nice that we have a small panel, and I think that it gives us an opportunity to get to know each other better. So I think it would be great to talk to our viewers about what actually inspired you to run for office. And we'll go ahead and start with Assemblymember Clyde Vanel.
So I actually, before I won, and I didn't even tell you guys where I'm from. I'm from Queens, so the best place on earth with, where everybody wants to be. So, but
unless you're in Brooklyn, right? Yeah.
But we all know Queens and Brooklyn's on Long Island.
But so I first ran for office in 2009. I ran for city council in 2009. And I actually ran I won on my 5th time. So I ran and got beat and ran and got beat and ran and got beat and learned every time. And I'm, I don't know if I'm very, very resilient or if I'm just too dumb to stop. But my path was, and everybody has a different path to office. I first ran for office because I used to own, I'm an attorney, and I used to own a restaurant. I used to own a couple of restaurants, but at that time I owned a restaurant in downtown Manhattan. And at the time, the city was doing a bunch of different things with the health department or what have you. But the mayor at the time wanted to extend his term limits from 2 terms to 3 terms. And people around the city were heated about that, and the city council members extended their term limits. In my district, I challenged my city council member, and no one else did. And in other city council districts, everybody else, they were, the city council members and incumbents were getting a lot of challenges. So that's what led me to look at the local politics. And since then, I had a pretty good race. I lost, though. I got a pretty good race, and then that's what got me running and involved with local politics.
Amazing. Assemblywoman Mathylde?
Yes, that's a great question. How did we all get here? As you're talking, I'm envisioning a coffee table book where maybe all of us as Haitian elected officials around the country can share our stories in terms of what brought us to politics. So my story, I shared a little bit of it when I did my introduction. My parents moved to the U.S. in the 70s. I was born in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, across from the Brooklyn Children's Museum, but moved to Coney Island when I was a little girl. And what I like to say to people is, if my parents had made the decision to live in Queens, to live in Long Island, to live anywhere else around New York City, my life may have been a little bit differently, because I think that a lot of times the universe, just based on where we're living and what we're seeing with our eyes every day, those are the things that impact the fire that we feel within us. It impacts our college major, it impacts our interests and the things that we want to do when we get older. So by living in Coney Island through the 80s and seeing a lot of quote unquote inner city issues, seeing the impact on drugs on this community, the impact of gun violence, the impact of homelessness. These were things I was seeing with my eyes every single day on an intimate level, and it impacted me to major in social work. And when all my friends couldn't wait to finish school so that they could run as fast as they could and get out of this neighborhood because it was considered a bad neighborhood, I wanted to stick around and just do something to give back. So my path was actually that decision that I made to stay behind, get involved, started multiple community organizations. So the hat that I was wearing was a nonprofit executive director. And just when I thought that all that I could do was done and I was bidding my farewell and I was actually going on a trajectory of academia because I have my PhD from Columbia and I was going to be a full-time professor. And it was, I like to say, the community elders who came to me and said, I know that you're planning on leaving Coney Island, but we'd like for you to run for this seat. And I said, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? So I thought about it and I decided to run. And since I've been here, it's just been an extension of the community helper role that I've already been in all these years.
Awesome, awesome. And so now to you, Assemblywoman Kimberly. You're on mute.
Oh, there we go. For me, it's kind of a little bit of the opposite. So I actually worked for local elected officials. I worked for the county. I worked for for Congress. I worked for Congressman Israel for about 2.5 years. And for me, I came from a background where, you know, and I think a lot of Haitians can relate, is where, you know, you hear the Haitian politics in your household more than you hear the politics of this country that you reside in. And even to this day, my partner all day long is Haitian radio. And and you hear what's going on in Haiti, but you do understand your obligation is to vote for presidential. So I was never really involved and didn't understand local government. And it wasn't something that we did unless it was a presidential year where you just voted across the board, the D line. And so when I was at Stony Brook University, I had an internship where I actually interned for a woman named Marsha Lawfer. And she was the first Democratic chairwoman out on Long Island, and she inspired me, and I got involved in local politics and didn't realize how important our local politicians had in our education. And it wasn't necessarily the federal government. The money may have come from the federal government, but the disbursement was through your local elected officials, and the quality of your roads, your taxes, your parks. So I got involved and I started working for different levels of government, from town, from county. And when my former predecessor, who retired 26 years in office, decided to run, some of, like Frontus would say, the elders of the community came to me and said, would you run? And I said, of course not. You know, we think sometimes as women or as people of color, we don't think that we have the qualifications to run for office. And I said, okay, I've had all these positions, but I don't think I can be in that leadership role. That's just too much for me. That's too much responsibility. But because of the elders around me said I could do and helped me see the vision, and I'm here.
And we're blessed to have you all here. And I think that, you know, your last comment kind of brings up a really good question about what it feels like to be in these roles as Haitian Americans, as Black people, as Black women, Haitian Black women, right? So how does that feel in these times? And especially when we're at the intersection of you know, multiple different pandemics happening at the same time. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Assemblywoman Mathylde, since you were shaking your head.
That's what I get. I'm a professional head shaker, so I like to shake my head whenever I hear something that I agree with. Look, it hasn't been easy. You know, I want to be careful how I express myself, because I think I toe the line every day of being optimistic and being positive, but also being a pragmatist and being a truth teller and telling my truth. Definitely telling my truth. On one hand, I will say this, and this is the truth. I had inner confidence coming into this role, because I feel that the years that I served my community, that was an intimate relationship. You know, I pretty much gave all my good years, I like to say, my 20s, when I could have been traveling the world and having a good time.
Amen.
What was in my heart was to start a nonprofit and serve my neighborhood. And it was just something that I'll never forget. You know, yesterday, a woman came in here and I needed a box of tissues. You know, she was saying, you don't know this, but you've touched so many families out here. She's like, my family alone, this was a Haitian family. It made it all the more special.
Absolutely.
And to see these kids that were in programs that I used to run all these youth programs. Now they're young adults, they're married, they're like, you know, they're graduating law school, graduating medical school. And the families literally come to me and say, you are the one who inspired my children. You're the one who inspired my daughters. You know, you can't, even $1 million wouldn't replace the feeling that I have. So I definitely had that confidence coming in. But once you get in, you know, confidence or no confidence, you're going to have some rocky days. And you're going to have those rocky days because, you know, this is still a sort of race obsessed society that attempts to diminish people of African descent whenever they get an opportunity to. Even when we don't give them the opportunity, there's an attempt to do that. And when you see that and when you experience it, it can really be unnerving. So I feel that day to day, that sense of people sometimes not seeing us, as our predecessors have said, that feeling of sort of either being glossed over or people making assumptions. Sometimes you walk into a room and people, you know, just because of the color of your skin, people are sort of making assumptions, which can be disheartening. So we as lawmakers, Black lawmakers, I think we sit right at the intersection of everything that's happening in this country. We're not immune from it. We're not immune to it. You know, when we're watching those videos of George Floyd, we're crying just like everybody else. There's no script or manuscript to deal with that. But I think we do the best we can while also trying to be there for other people. So.
Absolutely. Assemblywoman Kimberly, and of course after that, Assemblymember Clyde.
Well, I think, you know, if I think back 6 years ago, and I just think about our role as today, I would have never thought we would be where we are. But I think a diverse body of government is crucial to any process that we go through as New Yorkers, as Americans, as Haitian-Americans. And I think that having such a diverse body of people of color and Black people and Haitian-Americans and this time nowadays is crucial, especially when we see with the disparities of how the pandemic was handled in certain communities versus other communities. I represent a very diverse community, and I have from Haitian, Polish, Caucasian, Black American, Jamaican, Caribbean, and it's very diverse. And you just saw on Long Island the impact of what the pandemic did and the solution of getting treated, of getting tested in one community versus another community. But to have leaders that are of people of color and that can stand up, not only for all people, but to ensure that communities that have been far neglected with resources actually get services and resources at an expedite level as any other community. And you know, I can't think, Frontus said it, couldn't say it any better with everything that's happening in our criminal justice system everything that's happening in our education system, with inequality in our education system. I mean, New York City has one school board where we have, 124 school districts on Long Island. And you think about how important it is to have people of color on Long Island, because there are a lot of Haitian families on Long Island. And there are a lot of people of color on Long Island that deserve, if I buy a house in a neighborhood, it shouldn't be I have to move in one neighborhood because I'm going to get quality education versus another neighborhood. So I think there's just a lot at stake, and I'm very proud of the body that we have, and the body has definitely pushed a progressive agenda for people of color and Haitian Americans and Haitians. And it's time. It's our time. It's time that equity and social justice is given all across the board. It's fairly all across the board.
Awesome.
Vanessa, could you remind me of the question again? Because I just love their answers. I was like, ooh, yeah, I was into what they were saying. But
the idea behind the question was really to get behind or try to suss out, how does it feel to be a Black man right now in this position that you're in elected office and in New York?
So, it's the weight of it is heavy. So, and if you really look at it and try to understand, being in the position at this time, right? So, serving as an elected official during a time where we're seeing what's happening around the country. We're seeing what's happening in New York State. We're seeing what's happening from Staten Island to Brooklyn to Queens to Rochester to Buffalo. Seeing people seeing that this could be me every time this thing happens. So it's that's tugs at our humanity. Dealing with this disease that is disproportionately affecting people in our neighborhoods, experiencing how, forget about just the pandemic, but the economic pandemic, right? The economic situations that's dealing with, we were already unemployed and underemployed, the effects of what this is happening to us. So so being who we are,
right,
at this time, we have an extra responsibility, and it's pretty heavy. But at the same time, with that, we have a great responsibility to be able to make sure that people that we represent, that New Yorkers get ahead of this, better off. But no doubt about it, it's trying times.
Right. And I think this is a good segue into the next question I have, which is, in these trying times, in these different pandemics that are, meeting each other in these different ways, what do you see as the biggest challenges that your communities, the ones that you represent, are facing in these times? And what are you doing to actually address those challenges? And we'll start with you, Assemblymember Clyde.
So I think the biggest, if I had to look at so there are a lot of challenges, right? So
yeah,
we can, right? So we can, right, especially now. But I focus. So now that I have to make sure that our health care is okay. That we are. So for example, with coronavirus, we have to make sure that we have proper access to tests. We have proper access to information. We have to make sure that we stop the bleeding and we stop folks, if we can, from actually dying. I had to potentially stop super spread events and places, had to shut down supermarkets in my neighborhood where a lot of my people go. And they were mad, because, IU says, social distancing is it's a foreign concept to us, right? So if we're online, we stand on top of the next person. So that's very important. But one thing that's really important long term is the economic impact of this pandemic, right? So, the economy around the world, the economy in this state stopped. Many jobs have lost, right? So I think what's very important is to make sure that, and what I've been doing was we've been doing a lot. We've been going around. We've been doing food giveaways. We've been doing supply giveaways. We've been doing food pantries. That's important, but it's very important to teach people to fish. Right? I don't want to be a community where my community is dependent upon again, we have to give away the food. We have to do all that, but I don't want them to be dependent upon that. I don't want to turn my district into what our country is, where we over reliance, and I'm not saying it's important or not, but over reliance on NGOs. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to turn into that in my district. So what do? We have to make sure that, so if you look at my website, what we've been pushing jobs. I have a list of over 200 jobs that are hiring right now. Anybody that's watching, if you want to look for a job, go on my Facebook page, you'll find that there are jobs and opportunities. Also, we also have a list of economic opportunities, of opportunities for people to get contracts with the government, get contracts with private business. It's very important. Look, during this coronavirus pandemic, a lot of people are sheltered in and they don't want to go out to work, but there are opportunities to go out and work. I want my people to go out and grab those jobs first. I think that it's going to be very important to make sure that we get ahead of this and get jobs before the economy opens up.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Kimberly?
I too want to say that I think some of the priorities would be our pandemic, not only to ensure that people get tested, but it's to get rapid results. We still have a lot of delay with rapid results. Schools are opening and, it's a family choice out here. So those who have chosen to send their children to school, and then all of a sudden the school gets shut down because someone has gotten tested positive. So I think rapid results is key to the progress of this pandemic, particularly in communities where, we necessarily don't have the testing tools. And, over here, transportation is a huge issue. I mean, if you don't have a vehicle to get from one part of the county to the other part, or even within the same township, you can spend a 2-hour bus wait with a ride. It's just, it's nearly impossible, people to get to work, and, getting on a bus that's, that you have to wait or doesn't show up because, so it's tough. And so some of my priorities would be making sure that we get rapid testing, that we're sure that we're not cutting transportation in communities that really need the transportation, and to ensure that we help those small businesses. We have so many small businesses, as Clyde had said, who are not surviving this pandemic. And how do they survive? And how do they, some businesses have been operating in a old fashioned, and how do we help those businesses get more dated and utilizing technology, knowing how to get contracts, knowing how to, get the bids. And one of the biggest problems is with MWBEs, when we have these huge construction, these huge projects, and they say they can't find anyone with MWBE. So we need to, and there's so many of us, so many, but we need to get our people connected to the resources and connect the dots, get the training, get the certifications, and that's vital to being able to survive in this new world. So there's a lot. It's the economic downfall for us is huge. So many people have lost their jobs, and and some people have been forced to be home because, their children are at school, and some districts have closed and operated completely remotely. And that's hurting families. And, we have families who are landlords and can't meet the mortgages. And, and we just, when we're not talking about big landlords, we're talking about Haitian families,
right?
Who get a 2-family house and, rents one and then he lives in the other, and may not be getting the rent and may not be able to pay their portion of the mortgage because of loss of job, loss of wages. And these are professionals we're talking about. And it's a tough time. So it's really kind of testing and assessing our communities to ensure that we can fight for them, now and in the future session to come.
Awesome. And you, Assemblywoman Mathylde?
Yes, I mean, I'll just echo what was said before me. Anybody who's living right now in New York City in the 5 boroughs, we're living in an unprecedented moment in history, dealing with this pandemic, the economic downturn, the food insecurity. One of the first issues which came up in my district, which really just sort of shocked me, was looking at the levels of food insecurity. People from all walks of life, but certainly the elderly, people with small children, the disabled. And I'm proud to say, my office, not to boast, but we were right there in the beginning when the governor, I think it was that first day that he issued the stay at home, and everybody was sort of panicking and running to the groceries. And you started seeing, not everyone has enough money. Not everyone is in good enough health to go outside and get their groceries. So we went into action that same night, and I put together a whole coalition of volunteers. We started serving hot meals. It was just otherworldly. We were masked up like aliens and going into the buildings. So you have some senior citizens that had COVID. They literally didn't have anybody, no family members, no one to call to say, bring me my medicine, and we were being very brave. And, I worried about our health every single day. And I prayed, I said, please, I hope we don't get sick while we're trying to help other people. And I can just knock on wood, everybody was okay. It wasn't easy, but people are struggling, just as the Assemblywoman before me said, not only with food insecurity, but also with rent payments. I mean, I don't want to preach like a doom and gloom in terms of what's going on, but between the small businesses, between families where you have loss of income, people are asking for help and for relief. Relief is what people are asking for. They're saying, what are we going to do with all these rent payments? I understand that we can't get kicked out now, but when the dust settles, we're still going to owe 6 or 7 months back worth of rent. And how are we going to do that? So when you look at what's going on in New York City now, whether you're a small family, children, no children, whether you're a small business, every industry, households are hurting. You might have 2 income earners, but one person lost their job. So I think that those of us in the state legislature, it's something that I've taken to heart and very personally, where I feel like, are we letting people down? Are we doing right by them? I know that we're passing some good legislation, but they're really looking to us. They're looking to the city council, the New York State legislature. They're looking to the federal government to provide relief and assistance for them and their families. And it's very personal, I think, for people right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing that everywhere. And it's a lot of pressure, especially when you're in elected office, the fact that people look to you, right, to help them. And there's just only so much capacity that you have, not only on an individual level, but even just in your roles, which you can actually accomplish for people. So I can imagine just how difficult it is for all 3 of you, but I definitely commend you for doing whatever you can, because while you may not think it's enough, it is still so significant to everyone that you serve. So we're going to leave the US a little bit and we're going to travel to Haiti. And because this is a Haitian platform, a Haitian-American platform, I think that people would be very much interested to know what your relationship with Haiti is. And so let's see who we start with. Let's start with you, Assemblywoman Kimberly.
So my affiliation, so my parents are from Civic.
Okay.
And I had never been to Haiti until 2016. And yeah, and it was, and my mom hasn't been back to Haiti for over 25 years. And my father goes back frequently. However, when I went to Haiti in 2016, I fell in love. I fell in love with Haiti. I've been to Akaye, Tigouave. I've met so many great people. I've been to Kwarebouke. I've been to so many good places in Haiti. And then I went back, and my second time is when I took the delegation. About 40 of us traveled to Haiti, and Clyde was on that delegation. And we had an amazing time. We met amazing people. And I love to cook Haitian food. I have a Haitian partner, so that he is from Okai. So he's came here at 19, so he is Haitian girl.
That's right.
So, and Clyde knows, and Clyde, he is very Haitian. And we plan to build one day a beautiful summer home in Okai where we can spend our time and visit our beautiful country. And I always tell people, don't let the drama fear you and take you away from being and going to Haiti. I just love it. And I speak it. My grandmother she just passed away, but she was going to be 104 years old. And she always said to me, "Souble manger la caille moi, faut parler langue moi." So, and I love Haitian food.
That's beautiful. So, that's beautiful. Yeah. We might be neighbors in Okai, girl.
Oh,
Assemblywoman Mathylde.
Yeah, what a great story. I'm learning so many things about my colleagues tonight. This is really nice. It's like a fireside chat, if you will. So I've been longing to go to Haiti since I went for the first time in 2002. 2002. So when we think about Haiti, we think about the huge earthquake in 2010, and it's like, have you been to the pre-earthquake Haiti or the post-earthquake Haiti, right? So I was there for the pre-earthquake Haiti. 2002, I was in my 20s then. I went as part of like a delegation with my job then. I was living in Boston. I went to present a paper at a conference at the University of Quisqueya. Immediately fell in love, felt completely at home, like I owned the place. I just felt like I was born and raised there. And, every year since then, every time I have plans, something happens. And it's a combination, I think, of legitimate and people that very well who themselves go to Haiti all the time, saying, poco ale, poco bagayo, poco mama, and it's like you just end up never going.
Yeah.
So, and I've put my foot down and I've made a decision, like, I'm ready, like any day now. If Miss Jean-Pierre is ready to do another delegation, I'm putting her on the spot. I will be ready to go because I think one time is certainly not enough. But the pride, you know how Haitians are. I don't have to tell you. Other people always say, why are Haitians like that? I've never seen people so, proud of their culture. Everywhere y'all go, y'all showing off.
It's the best.
Everything. My heart is just so full of love. All things IET all day. And it's,
all day.
Yes.
All right. Well, when Assemblywoman Jean-Pierre takes us takes y'all to Haiti. Make sure you stop by Miami. Come get me, scoop me up.
Well, definitely. Your flight is a lot shorter than ours.
Oh yeah, like we be in there for like an hour, 40 minutes. It's not even. Assemblymember Clyde.
So my mom said Mun Kafu, my dad said Munokai. I've been to Haiti. Man, in the past few years, I've been to Haiti like maybe 5 or 6 times. I've been to Haiti a lot in the past few years. I went to Haiti one time as a child, and then the next time I went to Haiti was the day of the earthquake. The day of the earthquake, I rushed to Haiti. That was unspeakable. But then after that, again, I've been to Haiti a number of times. My Creole sucks, but I became a lawyer. I was a lawyer as a child because my dad drives taxi cabs, and I used to have to represent him in TLC court. So I was doing that as a kid. And I used to have to be the representative for my parents. Wow. So I've been doing that, and a lot of us share that story, right? So I've been doing that all my life. I am Haitian. So it's in my blood. It's who I am. It's how I walk. It's how I move. I was the guy that wore slippery shoes. You know what I'm saying? Back when people were wearing sneakers and stuff like that, I was wearing. I was the Haitian guy with the Haitian shoes on.
Yeah.
It's who I am.
You were a little baby Zopapi, right? Like a little. I think we're gonna have to have Neon take us on the trip to Haiti. We're gonna have to.
We're ready.
There, yeah. So, as we wrap up, I think that it's extremely important to talk about, the actual exercise of voting, right? And so today is National Voter Registration Day. So we obviously have to have this question on here. So what are you doing to ensure that voters actually exercise their rights to vote, even in the midst of a pandemic? So Assemblywoman Kimberly, we'll start with you.
So I want to say that, before the voting process, we need to remember about the U.S. Census, and we need to have people fill out the census. We have just a few more days. We need to be counted, every single, and then don't forget the baby on your arm, because 10 years from now, there won't be any resources for that child if you don't count that child. And there's so many myths going around as far as your U.S. citizenship and everything. So I just urge people to please fill the census. You can do it right online. People are calling your house. It's simple. It takes about 5 minutes. It's so important to our communities. So important to our communities. That's how organizations get the funding that we need and deserve. For voting, it's imperative. We in New York State, we did early voting. And with the pandemic, there's the absentee ballot, which is completely safe. Yeah. Do not listen to any rhetoric that's out there. It's completely safe. If you don't feel that you want to go to your voting location, do an absentee ballot. But you have 10 days to vote, and make a plan. Plan it out. Just the same way we make our lists when we go to the supermarket, especially with the prices of how groceries have increased. We get exactly what we need at the grocery store now. Make your plan. Make sure your voting location has not changed. Make sure, you have your mask prepared. You have your hand sanitizer. You're safe. If you go early, you have a few days to figure out when you want to go. And you check the times of each location, particularly in Suffolk County. All the town halls are voting poll location. And just figure that out. Map your plan. Because this, let me tell you, what we have now is, let's go crayon on you. What we have now is just unacceptable to represent us for another 4 years. We need a government that's going to fight for us, fight for all, and to ensure TPS is at risk. So when I talk to all of
ballot,
yeah, at risk. So please exercise. And if you can't vote, but let me make sure you go and find people that can vote and tell them. And if you're listening, tell them, map your plan out, do your absentee ballot, figure it out, but you must vote this election.
Oh, that's a word. Assemblymember Clyde.
So what we're doing is look, keep in mind, as the Assemblywoman stated, we have until September 30th to fill out the census. Well, we want to make sure you fill out the census. Also, when it comes to the census, it doesn't ask about your status, being here, what have you. So people are afraid about that. Also, you don't need to be afraid about that. So please fill out your census. And also, we want to tell people that it's very easy to fill out because you could go on your phone and go to a website, my2020census.gov, and you can fill it out online. It takes 5 minutes. You can do that right now. So please do that online, my2020census.gov. And also you can do that for your parents, for your auntie, for your blah, 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 blah. So for the ones that don't have access to the internet, you can do it for them. Voting, very important. Let me tell you how important it is. We actually get a list. We know the list of people that actually vote. And during election time and before election time, if I'm on a block and I'm going door to door, if I'm in the neighborhood and I skip the homes that don't vote, literally, right? If you don't vote, you don't matter. And I believe you don't have the right to complain if you don't vote. Basically, it's that serious. And I'm not telling you who to vote for, but vote. We also have to make sure it's not enough that you yourself only votes in your house. Make sure your children vote. Make sure your husband vote. Make sure your wife vote. Make sure everybody in the house votes. We want to make sure one of the things that we're doing, and we're working with a Haitian PAC to make sure that we get out the Haitian vote. It's important that we bring out high numbers of us voting. We look at that, right? So that's very important. Tomorrow night, on every Wednesday night, we have a virtual vote phone bank to call people to bring out the vote. And we've been working on that. And this is a journey. This is something that we're going to consistently do. But we have to exercise our voting and civic muscle, and we have to make sure we have to increase the Haitian voter turnout, but not only for general presidential elections. We have to make sure that we vote in primaries. We have to make sure that we vote in off-year elections, and that's something that we have to consistently, make sure that we do. That's why I'm happy that I'm talking to HAV and to NAAHP because you guys are helping with this.
Awesome. Assemblywoman Mathylde.
Yes, thank you to my colleagues for reminding everyone about how important the census is. I want to chime in and not be left out and remind everybody, please, if you're watching us now, just stop what you're doing and take a few minutes out to fill out your census form. I want to add to what was said before me that, when we think about the census, many people think it's just like a chore as to fill out this boring form. They want to get all in my business. Do you know that for every census form that's filled out, it equals approximately $4,000 of funding for our communities? The census is so important, it actually determines how much money is poured into our neighborhoods. And I wish I had that on a button or a t-shirt and walk around the community so people understood that. So if you like to have nice things, if you want to have things that you need in your neighborhood, we need to get this done. In terms of voting, again, I'm a roll up my sleeve types of person. I'm out every single Saturday in my neighborhood doing voter registration. If you follow me online on my social media, we're going to keep doing it until election day. This is one of the most significant elections in our lifetime. I'm not trying to scare people to death, but it's a very, very important election. And there's so much happening in our country now. We can't take things for granted. We can't sit on the sidelines and view voting as something that other people do. We have to roll up our sleeves and get involved and participate. And as someone else has said, we have to vote like our lives depended on it. So we want to make sure that if you're listening to us tonight, that you have a plan. What is your plan to vote? Have you figured it out yet if you're listening to me? Are you going to the polls on election day? Are you filling out an absentee ballot? So get your plan in order and make sure that you cast your vote.
Awesome. So we have come to the end of our session, but I do want to give y'all an opportunity to close in about a minute or less. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Assemblymember Clyde. We will then go to Assemblywoman Mathylde. After that, we'll give it to Kimberly to close, and I'll make the closing remarks.
Vanessa, thank you for having us. As we said, your last question was very important. The importance of making sure we get out the vote and the importance of Haitian civic engagement. That's why it's important to have these organizations like yours doing what you're doing. We understand that we stand in this two-ness, this duality of being American and being Haitian. And we have to make sure that in order for us to help leverage the power that we do have in this country, we have to totally engage as American citizens and engage our civic power. So this is, thank you for putting this together. And also thank you for being a national organization, right? Where people from around the country, you're connecting Haitians and Haitian Americans from around the country, from all corners of the United States and all corners of the earth, which is very important. Thank you for doing that. This is no small task, and I'm humbled to be part of this.
Awesome, thank you. Assemblywoman Mathylde, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Yes. I had to get the door.
No problem.
Vanessa, I wanna just take a moment to thank you so much and to thank the National Association of Haitian Professionals, the other organization that's involved co-hosting this event tonight. I was trying to remember the name of your predecessor and it came to me. Was it Serge?
Serge, I'm not the chairwoman of NAAHP, just the Haitian-American Voters Empowerment Coalition.
Got it.
Still there.
Wonderful. Because from the beginning, I was just going to say, I've always been a fan. And I've been following the work of the organization. I used to travel to Boston and wherever else you guys would have the annual meetings, and it was always well worth it, a good investment of my time. I think one year you guys were at NYU Law School, and I've always had a sense of pride. I'm just really proud of us as a community, as a people. As Member Vanel said, we've come a long way. Those of us who were raised here in New York City, it was really in our lifetimes, those of us who are around a certain age, we remember very well when Haitians were not getting any respect in this city and were being discriminated against openly. And from time to time, you still see people kind of testing the waters and putting job ads in the newspaper. I think everyone here remembers that for nurses, but saying no Haitians need apply as if it was 100 years ago. Yeah. But I just want to say that I'm happy to be here tonight. I appreciate having this opportunity to have this dialogue with all of you. And for everyone else who's a young Haitian professional, I want to stress the importance that we continue to have events just like the one that you organized for tonight. These are the type of events that I used to look forward to 20 years ago, even longer than that, where I would try to meet someone, get their card, hopefully find a mentor, someone who can answer my questions. And now it's like coming full circle. And it's really a privilege for us to be able to do the same thing. So thank you.
Awesome. Assemblywoman Kimberly.
Well, again, thank you. Thank you to NAAHP and to Have for hosting us. Vanessa, you were an incredible host tonight. It was an easy flow, a great dialogue, and an important dialogue. And I just want to say it's how important it is to fill out that census, vote on election day. As Clyde said, not telling you who to vote for, but it's important to be in part of the process. But as Frontus says, this is an important time, the most crucial time in ever to vote. So again, thank you. I am honored to continue my service as an elected official representing my district, but also representing the Haitian diaspora and continuing to take pride in being a Haitian-American in our beautiful country, Haiti.
Amazing, amazing. So, they took the words right out of my mouth, because I had it in my notes that I have to remind you all to please complete the 2020 census. And I'm just going to say it again, because I know some of you still sat there 3 times it was told to you and you still haven't done it. The deadline is right around the corner, so you have to complete it by September 30th. And so again, to do so, please go to my2020census.gov. Make sure your friends, families, neighbors, cousins, aunties, everybody does so as well. And again, today is also National Voter Registration Day. So please celebrate this day with the time that we have left by checking your voter registration status, pledging to register, and actually registering to vote, and also updating your voter registration. If you've moved or you've changed your last name or you recently became a U.S. citizen, please get registered and keep your information up to date. Encourage your friends and families to do the same. We're in a pandemic, you've got the time, and so go to havecoalition.org to register to vote today. A huge thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to join us here. This was a great conversation. It was just so much fun to be with you all. Thank you to our sponsors, For Better, of course, Home Team, Shokagela, and the Haitian-American Voters Empowerment Coalition. And of course, another huge thank you to all of you who tuned in tonight to learn more about these candidates and, elected officials. And it has been a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. And I'm just so excited to see you all again here soon. So thank you all once again, and have a very blessed evening.
Thank you. Bonne nuit.